Now, what's the latest on Randy Boissonnault? I know you all love to follow Randy. The employment minister, the Liberal member of parliament from Edmonton Centre. He's the guy who stays up all night talking to trans kids when they're concerned about something, largely anything that the Alberta Premier introduces. That Danielle Smith, when she talked about, I don't think it's a good idea for 12-year-olds to be having sex change operations. It's something they might regret down the road, maybe even 3 months later. Maybe they don't want to be on medication for their entire life to keep the sex change operation going in place. Maybe they don't want to have puberty blockers. Maybe they decide at 17 it wasn't a good idea. Randy thinks that's a bad idea. He thinks 12-year-olds should be having sex change operations because that's just like joining the chess club at school. Yes, this imbecile actually said that. Just like he said he stays up all night talking to trans kids who are so worried about Danielle Smith's legislation. But this is classic. He also claimed, this is how low this guy gets. He also claimed he was Indigenous. And this is how his company, which of course is also the source of a major scandal. What was Randy doing still owning a lobbying firm while he was a cabinet minister? But it seems he was trying to get favoritism, special favors from the government by pretending to be Indigenous or First Nations, or whatever you want to say, however you want to describe it. And it was a bald-faced lie. Here he is. This is the Indigenous Liberal Caucus. Yeah. But so Randy had to come clean about this. It's hard to come clean about these things, isn't it? It's hard to admit you're a liar. And Randy, of course, did his best to pretend he's not lying. Just like you recall the Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren in the United States, the Massachusetts Democratic senator. She claimed, of course, to be Indigenous. They don't reuse that word in the States as much as we do. They say native, or sometimes they even use the old phrase Indian. But of course, Trump dubbed her Pocahontas for that because it was a bald-faced lie. She's not in any way Indigenous any more than I am.
Randy Boissonnault is apologizing after shifting statements about his family's Indigenous heritage.
I want to say unequivocally that I apologize for not being as clear about my family history as I could have been with everything that I know now.
CTV's chief political correspondent Vashi Kapellos has a reaction tonight. Vashi.
Heather, the minister.
Now, did you get this? It's not that he lied. This is so typical of liberals and Democrats. I didn't lie. I wasn't clear. I just didn't make it clear that I'm really not. Because what I meant to say was, I am Indigenous, but I'm really not. Is that clear, Randy? Is that how clear you wanted to be? Because actually, that's not clear at all. That's completely ambiguous. And for you to make an apology and pretend you didn't lie is no good.
The minister is facing headwinds from multiple places over claims he's made about his heritage, now going back almost a decade. The National Post was first to report on those shifting claims. Boissonnault first identified as a non-status adopted Cree, then last week amended that to say his adoptive mother and brother were Métis citizens. The minister insists he was not trying to pretend to be Indigenous, but that his claims are reflective of confusion over his adoptive family's history. The issue, though, is really how all of this came to light. A medical supply company Boissonnault once co-owned bid for a federal contract, and here's the key, identified itself as Indigenous-owned. Boissonnault's involvement with that company was already being probed by a parliamentary ethics committee. The committee is probing whether Boissonnault's involvement in the business activities of the company after joining cabinet amount to a breach of conflict of interest rules. And the Conservatives, Heather, they're calling on Randy Boissonnault now to resign.
All right, Vashi, thanks.
All right, are we digging this? Are we getting this? This is phenomenal. So he not only claimed in his personal life to be Indigenous, he used it as a bargaining chip in his company to get government contracts. So he lied about it so he could get government contract. This man is just corrupt through and through. And once again, nobody's defending him in the Liberal caucus or the cabinet. It's just that's Randy. Yeah, that's Randy over there. Yeah, we know how bad it is. We're not going to defend him. But the committee's dealing with that. Maybe the police will deal with it someday. Maybe the courts will deal with it someday. But we're not even going to talk about it. And of course, Randy will not stand up in the House of Commons and address these things. He gets the House Leader, another non-entity, to stand up and say, "Well, these matters are being settled right now." And this is another example of the Liberal government being completely out of the water. And as we said earlier, Stephen Guilbeault is completely detached from reality, talking about keeping gas and oil caps in place, keeping the carbon tax in place, even increasing it. Doesn't matter if Donald Trump was elected president. Yeah, I'm sorry, it does. It does matter. It's a different world right now. It's a completely different world now that Donald Trump will be president in about 2 months minus 4 days, plus 4 days. 2 months plus 4 days, Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States, barring something horrible happening in the interim. And the world has already changed. Donald Trump is nominating people who are going to take the Liberal government by storm. By the actions in the United States, they're going to completely affect what Justin Trudeau's government can do in Canada. So we've got Guilbeault acting like a complete ignoramus. We've got Randy Boissonnault again. This is what, the third or fourth strike against this horrible cabinet minister who is an excuse. He shouldn't even be sitting in the House of Commons. He's a DEI hire. That's all he is, and we all know why I'm saying that. He's a DEI hire. He should not be in the House of Commons. He should not be sitting there. And why the people of Edmonton elected this idiot, I have no idea. But for God's sake, I hope they don't re-elect him the next time, because this really is an embarrassment. Which brings us to the segue, because this is almost part 2 of yesterday's broadcast. You recall what we talked about yesterday was, how can the Trudeau government survive a Trump administration with the idiots they've got in cabinet? They've got it's a pack of scoundrels like Guilbeault and Boissonnault, or incompetents like Chrystia Freeland and Melanie Joly. And I've got another. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, folks. Don't listen to Justin Trudeau. We need this kind of attitude in Canada right now, because let me tell you, Justin Trudeau will fight tooth and nail to stay as leader of the Liberal Party and as Prime Minister of Canada, and he will use every trick in the Liberal handbook to do that. So we have to be vigilant, and we have to have perseverance to fight this battle to the end. As I've been saying since this station went on the air, we need to resolve to resist. And we need to fight for our free speech and our democratic rights to say what we believe, to speak, as John Diefenbaker said. And don't forget that T-shirt that's available out there in the store. I speak as a free Canadian, free to speak, free to believe in what I choose. And Justin Trudeau is not going to interfere with that. Thanks for being a part of the KRAYDEN'S Right Resistance, and we'll see you again soon. So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need a political change, but we also need to resolve to resist.